So I've spent some time in both North Dakota and New Orleans, opposite sides of the country, very different experiences. In New Orleans, it's a swamp, it's very hot, it should be mosquito haven, and was in the past, causing all kinds of problems. So now they spray for mosquitoes, and there's like no mosquitoes, and you don't get bit at all when you go there. However, North Dakota, which is not as much of a mosquito haven, they don't spray as much. So, ironically enough, in North Dakota, in the summer, the mosquitoes are a problem, and you get bit, and it's there that you have to contend with the mosquitoes. This is a pattern that I think is interesting and can apply to many difficulties or problems in many areas. If something's really severe, it's obvious, and it gets taken care of, and perhaps even gets eradicated, then in an area where it is not so severe, or a less severe problem, is like the real problem, because everybody knows about the big thing that's right out in the open. Everyone's working on that. But therefore, the real problems are actually the lesser ones that fly under the radar somewhat and are not so exigent. I think also of how viruses, as they develop, will become less virulent so that they won't kill their hosts as much, but more contagious, and therefore like more contagious and able to spread more, because if it's not as severe, then the virus can hang on to the host for longer and spread more. And I certainly see this in patterns and like issues which I wish to alleviate in my own internal sort of landscape, the internal United States of my mind, the mosquitoes of the mind. Where are we going with this? Like there's that one verse somewhere, like the little foxes spoil the vines, flies make the ointment to stink. Like it's sometimes the little things that are, because they are so small and so inoffensive, the real or the most powerful troublemakers. And one way to look at it is that it's like whack-a-mole, right? You get it out of you eradicate some pattern, say of thought or feeling, you reset it in one area, and then the same thing sort of pops up in another area, perhaps in a subtler way. Well, always in a subtler way, because it's, for instance, I spent a lot of my life believing in eternal conscious torment. I'm in the middle of reading aloud DBH's amazing book, That All Shall Be Saved. So I've been thinking about that. I spent a lot of my life under the shadow of that idea, and that is like a very obvious, very big, salient like problem, right? Like a wound, something that's wrong. it's almost pretty much the worst thing you can imagine, right? And on a universal scale and a very personal scale because of like your loved ones and having to do with God, the most absolute thing. I mean, that's just like the purest manifestation of so many bad patterns that one can imagine. And yeah, truly, truly diabolical in its like twistedness. I don't know. At any rate, I almost rather quickly, just like in the case of the very infant, like as soon as I realized that that was something that I didn't have to believe in anymore, and I could see a way out of it, I very quickly, within a matter of months, escaped that. And that's like, I guess the 80-20 principle is another adjacent pattern. That's like 80% of that gone, right? Now that I don't believe in eternal conscious torment. And now it's very easy for me to read this book and to look at all the arguments and to feel very comforted and like to follow the arguments and to see how it makes sense and to see how ECT doesn't make sense. And although on that note it is funny how even though I don't believe in it anymore, but it still has a certain force, like a brute force of just having been upheld for so long in the minds of so many people and in sort of the systems of the way that much of the religion functions. It's like it still has the idea still has a certain force to it and a certain like authority or weight that it truly does not deserve. But anyhow, I could sit back and feel quite satisfied that like, okay, we don't believe in ECT anymore. Great. All is well. However, those same patterns, those same sort of twisted patterns of feeling and self-image and image of others and trajectory of the universe that are present in the idea of eternal conscious torment have simply moved elsewhere and infiltrated themselves, or were always infiltrated, I suppose, but they're infiltrated into subtler, more complex areas of my life that are not so obvious to pick apart. But it's like, it's the same pattern. Even though I'm not, believing that God hates people and has wrath on people or that we inherently deserve hell, what does that matter if, say, I'm still beating myself up for my failures or being a perfectionist or feeling that certain concrete elements of my life and my heart have no future or are meaningless, etc. It's the same patterns. Now that the big, most obvious instantiation has been eradicated, which is a genuine step up. I mean, it is a genuine step up, but now the thing has just mutated and gone and hidden itself elsewhere, which is funny. But the nice thing is that then I can reread this book. So now that we've got that established and got like almost the most paradigmatic case of these patterns taken care of, if I read this, if I continue to sort of get that train of logic straight of why no eternal hell and why universal restoration in the Christian framework, then I can apply that same pattern of correction and of healing to the said other areas too, and like with enough translation, I can leverage that like for the other ones on smaller scales. A somewhat similar example of patterns like removing themselves and subtly coming back and back is what I started calling today. I thought of calling it the harmonic series of, I don't know, what, self-consciousness. I don't want to say metacognition because that can be a positive thing as well as a negative thing, but like meta, I don't know, but it's a harmonic series of something, because you have like, it sort of goes up and up and at certain intervals and like fades out. When you play a note, it's not just the one note, it's like the series above it, or one tone, it's the series above it. And so, for instance, like, it's been just perfectionism lately. So, say I realize I do something wrong. Let's say I realize that I'm worrying that somebody dislikes me when they probably don't dislike me, and like I don't have to think that way, and it's like mistaken for me to think that way. So I realize that, right? And it's like, okay, great. Now we know that I don't have to worry in that way, so I can stop worrying. And so that's like the first level of it. But then there's like another level above it where I'm going, oh no. Like immediately as soon as that's taken care of, it's like, oh no. I've been worrying this whole time. I've been doing something wrong. I haven't been like it's like, oh no, I made a mistake. Okay, well we can fix the mistake. But then it's like, oh no, I'm making mistakes. I'm not describing this very clearly, but if you've had the same type of thoughts, it's like on one level there's the distress of the thing that you're doing wrong, and then as soon as, or if that abates a little bit, it's immediately reinforced by the distress that you did the wrong thing in the first place, and like it's like meta worry and fear, which is quite funny because it's the exact same thing, just like on a meta level, so it's a little bit harder to grasp. How to tie all that together? Maybe if you had many mosquitoes. If you have New Orleans and North Dakota has a sort of scale, and then the mosquitoes here. And maybe that's like eternal hell is down here, and then bliss and consciousness and being is up here also. If the mosquitoes are eradicated from the bottom area, they will go up. And since mosquitoes make sound, it will create a harmonic series as the mosquitoes displace themselves higher and higher. So there is a Tokipona song about me, about trying to moli e pipi. I do not know the song, but wow, it is really hard to figure out how to close this in a nice way. I feel like it's like, I could come up with a phrase that I would say. I should come up with a phrase. Or maybe just a quote, or maybe just like a quote that's been in my head, because I always have those. And I can just say that at the end, in the beginning. All will be well, and all manner of thing will be well.